Hello, patrons. It is Tuesday, March 20th, 2018. This is your Cup of Jones. Good morning. You might be thinking to yourself, you look a little tired, Jones. Yep. Oh boy. It's interesting. I did a test this morning, an unscheduled test. Our clipboard is currently at back at the stream. We left 3 things at the venue this weekend. I brought a dolly, left that there. We brought our step and repeat, which we did not have time to set up. The background for our E3 streams. Let me know if I skip this one. Can't skip it. It's too much. Too much fun. Too much going on. We're gonna be 2 years old tomorrow. It's too much fun to skip Cup of Jones. I might go through it fast, but I brought the clipboard to handle ticket stuff, but did not tell our person that was taking in the tickets that was my clipboard, and so they returned it to the venue. So we're down 3 items, but everything else was recovered, including all of the allies and close friends and family. And we did a show. We did our 2-year anniversary concert, Easy Allies in Concert Revengeance. If you are hanging out here on Patreon and you missed it, you can check it out. There's a couple ways you can check it out. You can check it out on a big link that is a direct feed. It's basically the show as everyone else saw it on Twitch this weekend. You can see that on youtube.com, currently youtube.com/easyallies. You can also go to Twitch, which I recommend is kind of fun to do because, I mean, go to YouTube for the views, certainly we appreciate those, but I enjoyed going back and because I missed a lot of stuff in chat. I missed the comments during the stuff when I was on stage, and so it was fun to go back on Twitch and see the comments live. But we will also be posting a lot of the individual things. Currently, the premiere of Box Peak is up, is performing very well, and is something that, I mean, I could spend the requisite hour and 45 minutes of Cup of Jones just talking about how much I liked that first episode of Box Peak. I knew I liked the script, but I had not seen that until we all saw it together. So that was very exciting. There was a little bit of latency issue with the videos themselves. There was like a frame rate or a, interlacing issue or something with us. We did not deliver footage to the venue beforehand, so that's something that we'll definitely do a lot of tests of next year. But we just kind of showed up with our videos not knowing that there would be problems like that, and we tried to correct a couple before the show started, but the videos were all a little out of sync. So if you see the archive on YouTube, or if you watch the video on Twitch, the videos will be a little wacky, but you can watch Box Peak in its entirety. We're going to be posting some of those other things individually, along with all of our individual performances. So if you just want to share with somebody Blood's rap or Ian's, not montage, Ian's, what's the one I'm looking for? Not melody, Ian's thing where he sang several songs in a short amount of time. Kind of like what I did, but I broke for talking in between those songs. Medley. A medley. Steven CT, who I just saw, jumped in with medley, but I got it. I beat you by just a second. And props to Alexander Zirianov, who beat me into chat this morning. But yeah, we're on the other end of that concert. That was craziness. I found out this. I did a test this morning, unscheduled, of what's the minimum amount of time if I can get the document early, set up the camera, set up the mic, and get everything going to run out here and start Cup of Jones. Amanda shook me awake at 9:30, and she's like, "Yeah, you might wanna. Don't you have Cup of Jones this morning?" I was like, I set my alarm for 8:40, and for some reason, I default to the button on my phone that's just like, off, you're done. So my alarm went off at 8:40. I went immediately back to bed, but it means I got that extra 50 minutes of sleep, so I appreciate that. Lots to celebrate. We're celebrating tomorrow that we're turning 2 years old. We're also celebrating, I'm celebrating, that as of Sunday morning for patrons, as of yesterday morning for everybody else, the Souls Retrospective is now done. Part 5 is up. That is the entirety of the Souls Retro. Kudos to Daniel Bloodworth for not only going over all of those scripts. I believe Ben Moore, and I'm sure Ian got a glance at those scripts too. Sean Clinton helped me with the edit a couple times. He got a little advanced peek at those because he's a big Souls fan. So, and of course, major kudos and kudos to Daniel Bloodworth for poking and prodding me, to make time to get all of that wrapped up. But props to the man himself, Mr. Brad Ellis, for playing all of that, writing that script. That was also Brad's. Brad has assisted with retrospectives in the past, but that was. entirely his thing. And retro scripts are a very specific type of language. You know, they're trying to achieve something that a lot of the videos that we don't do, they go much more in depth, and the discussions that we have on our podcasts much more in depth than the a don't skip or a review, you know, could ever get to. So that's why they take a little bit more work, and I'm obsessive with getting all of that stuff as good as possible within the time frame. So I usually take a little more time than necessary. So, but we got it up right before we announced it at our anniversary last year, and we managed to get it to you before the next anniversary. And we're very careful not to announce any more retrospectives at our anniversary that we cannot deliver on a timely fashion. Metal Gear Retro next. We did a Metal Gear Retro at Game Tros. You can go check it out. MGS5 is not included. Was MGS4 even in that? I think we might have done that before MGS4. So MGS4's not in there either, but a lot of Metal Gear games that you can check out. And tonight, Twitch.tv, I can't even say tonight, it's this afternoon, Twitch.tv/EasyAllies, 4 p.m. Pacific time. We will be beginning instead of 6 p.m., so we'll be going for 4 hours. We're going to be playing all sorts of funny games. I know those games from Kyle. Kyle posted the final list. I don't know how much we are. I missed the part where we let everybody know that as well, so I don't know if that's spoilery. But we will be playing 4 separate games, 1 per hour, and they're all very fun. Some might be pertinent to maybe other streams or shows that we've done recently. Some might be games that are being talked about, you know, or in the Easy Allies hive mind, as it were. What is it, Deep Mind? And that's all I got. There's other fun stuff happening. I saw somebody mention in chat that's the lovely Some Game News that does abridged versions of a lot of our content, streaming content specifically. Put up a video of Easy Living. Apparently this is part 1 of several coming down the pipe. So thank you so much, Some Game News, for putting that together. I have not seen it yet, but I missed a lot of Easy Living because I was sleeping. So it'll be fun to go back and maybe catch up on some stuff that I have yet to see. So there we go. It's, you know, we had a lovely meetup yesterday at the La Brea Tar Pits. Thanks to everyone that made it out. Thank you to lovely presents that were given. I got a gift yesterday I can't even open yet. We're going to open it on stream tonight. So thank you to everybody that said hi. Thanks to everybody that came to the concert. Thank you to everybody that watched the stream live on Twitch. We had really great numbers, really great support. Yeah, and everything's great. Is the demo discs video by Ben a part of an upcoming series? That's just a one-off. It was very well made. Yeah, I encouraged Ben backstage to do some more VO because I loved hearing him speak. Here we go. Feedback. Ryan Burleson, care to reminisce about GoldenEye a little? Sure. Any fond memories from the jungle level? Memorable moment unlocking a hard cheat? Do you remember the floor pattern in the Egyptian level puzzle room? I mean, let's go through these. Do you remember the floor pattern in the Egyptian level puzzle room? I mean, I remember that moment. I couldn't say, like, I know you go up and left when you start it, but I don't know. It's kind of like up, left, and then like forward, up. Right, back, right. You kind of do like a backwards S around it, but I don't remember specifically the beats. If I could try it right now, I'd probably get shot a couple times before I perfected it. But what a devious little puzzle that you have to like physically occupy a certain space. It's not like you're stepping on platforms or something. There's no visual representation that you're doing it right, unless you get to the weapon and don't die. Memorable moment unlocking a hard cheat. I mean, Facility, clearly. Facility was a nightmare. Because there was, you know, you had to be ice cold, no mistakes. And there was a Dr. Doak, who I think was named after a developer. I think Doak was one of the developers. And you had to, and it might have been his face too, because I got the vibe that like a lot of the developers, you know, scanned their faces to make the weird looking faces that were in that game on those characters. But you had to find Dr. Doak, and there was really only one place that you could just kind of swing by Dr. Doak really quickly to get a pass, and or get a key or something that you needed later on, and backdoor shady deals. And he would randomly spawn in 3 different places, and so if you got through that first part of Facility and you're like, I'm nailing it, I'm making really good time, you know, I haven't been hit by anybody yet, and is Dr. Doak in this room? No, he's not. All right, start over. So I remember that was Blood is script editing this morning. What's up, Blood? So yeah, that was definitely memorable. That's stressful, but it had, I think it was like invisibility or invincibility was the cheat that you got from that. So, do I have any Kleenex? I don't. Maybe? Yes, I do. Left in my pocket from overnight. stealth sneeze. Nobody saw it. Blew my nose. For listeners and viewers, it's like it never happened. Care to reminisce about GoldenEye any fond memories from the jungle level? Jungle level was very hard. I do have a specific fond memory from jungle level because jungle level was the first level I ever saw in GoldenEye. GoldenEye was recommended by a dear friend of mine named Michael Heilman, who I do not play games with anymore. I have not seen in a long time. He lives up in San Francisco, or around and abouts. And I was just over at Heilman's house, and he was like, you heard about this GoldenEye thing, right? This was way after launch, and I hadn't. I mean, I was kind of familiar with it, but it was just not on my radar. And he was like, dude, this game's amazing. And he's like, let me just show you this jungle level specifically. He's like, this is like the Vietnam game I always wanted. You know, you're just like going through the brush and hiding through the trees. And I mean, now, of course, when I first went through that level, I got destroyed, but now I like memorize where everybody is. And I think that's kind of the fascination of GoldenEye is, you know, obviously there's a lot of more spontaneous shooters now that have a lot more just kind of unbridled chaos, but there definitely is a method to the madness of GoldenEye that you pick up over time if you play it 500 times like I did. But let me see if I can think of one other memory. We talked about GoldenEye a little bit, that I would like train myself to screen cheat, which is like the worst thing you can do now, but I just didn't know screen cheating was bad at the time. And I really wanted to make a trailer because the GoldenEye trailer, the first trailer, it's the one with all the great lines like, why can't you just be a good boy and die, and that's one trick I've never learned, and you're just like boys with toys, and planes blowing up. It's a really good cut. It's a very scattered cut. It's really hard. You know, I know you get frustrated, or I know, I do, many of you possibly do, get frustrated. I'm kind of at that point with Infinity War now, because I've seen 2 Infinity War trailers, where it's like, that Cap scene probably happens before that Winter Soldier scene, so like, oop, I know that scene now. You know, you can kind of piece together, you see too many trailers, like how, with the order of events, and so when you see the movie, you're like, wait, we still have yet to see that scene, so that character's fine, don't worry. The trailer for GoldenEye is all over the place. It looks like there's 400 action sequences in this movie because of how they do a really good job picking shots that don't feel like they're from the same sequence that you just saw. And I always really wanted to lay over the audio from that trailer with footage from GoldenEye video game, and see if I could do it. And just, you know, I could maybe do it now, but I think the thing that discouraged me was how the heck do I capture 64 footage? I think the first footage I ever captured was on the PlayStation 2, so I was one generation behind the technical capability to capture the Nintendo 64. I care to reminisce about GoldenEye a lot, Ryan Burleson, but we're going to move on. Bearded Scotsman 86, I would like to make a request to use more worldwide friendly date format on videos. In Europe, we use date, month, and year. The podcasts were friendly previously with February 21st, 2018, for example. Now you're just using numbers, which makes the first 12 days of the month confusing, especially if you go back to it at a later date. Same goes for Cup of Jones titles, as you always use the American date format. Well, today's the day we're changing that. I don't know if you've noticed, but on patreon.com/easyallies, the post says March 20th, 2018. That totally makes sense. I'm totally fine with that. That's a very easy change for us to do. You know, even being at my age, I still think, especially when it gets around like April and May, or like I think September on, I'm fine. When you get into the summer months, it's like, what's June? I don't know, 5, I think. Then July is 6. But it's just like, you always take them up. What's the 3? So if I don't have to do that, great. And I will bring that up with Kyle, and I'm curious what Bloodworth thinks about that. Hey, Bearded Scotsman. There you go, Bearded Scotsman. Happy to making dreams come true. That's like the easiest thing. Brandon K. Gann, by the time you read this, Easy Allies in Concert Revengeance is a wrap. It was a wrap, too. There was a wrap at Easy Allies in Concert Revengeance. So, what are your critiques about the event? Do you believe it was an improvement over the first concert? Yes. Any other thoughts about how Sunday played out? Kyle Lee also chimed in a little later on in comments. I know it still feels fresh, but I was curious if you have any immediate thoughts on how it went and anything you want to improve upon for next year's concert. Never too early to ask this question. You could have asked this question 10 minutes after the concert ended, and I could have given you an earful about all sorts of things. The videos, there you go. I mean, the fact that we didn't, you know, export a short little test and send it to him, you know, via email or Drive or something, and be like, hey, plug that into your computer and see if that works, and let us know the format. I remember when we did E3 coverage for All Access, we used to work with Jeff Keighley at Spike, producing that content, what frame rate stuff was in, what the, you know, all sorts of the codecs and all of that stuff. Knowing when you were delivering video footage was very carefully picked apart, and it was always a little scary when people would show up for their interview and be like, "Oh, here's my game footage. Can you just plug that in?" We're like, "Yeah, well, it might take 10 minutes." Yeah, that was a big one. We weren't able to go direct feed, which was a little frustrating. We thought that the videos, when we rolled those in, were going to be direct feed, and then we were told beforehand that was a little bit of a hassle. I believe they worded that before by saying it was a little tricky, but we thought, hey, you know, this is what they do. Hopefully they can make it happen, but that might be too much to ask, or next year if we want that, it might be nice to schedule a rehearsal ahead of time to come in and try to make that work. We didn't have like a stage manager. It's always a question of how much staff we need. We had Omar de Armas on merch. We had Sean Clinton on pseudo security. He was just kind of, you know, marching around making sure everything was okay. We had the wonderful Jessica Linverdi taking tickets, but we didn't have a stage manager. Blood was kind of a stage manager, but Blood also needed to be backstage and be on the show. And so there were just a couple moments where we finished and we were like, okay, cool. And then it was time for a video, and like we walked off stage, and then it's like, we need the screen, and then the screen starts coming in. So it's like, okay, we could have picked that up. You know, like they had the rundown, like they knew like video's next. So when we're like, goodbye, and we walk off stage, like bring the screen in. So it'd be nice maybe next year if we're at the same venue to have someone officially that is not in the show at all brought on and hired to be just the stage manager for the evening that sees the rundown, that can tell them like, go do that. That doesn't work. That's not that. Yada yada. But that being said, because I can nitpick anything that we work on, such an improvement over last year's. The sound, the lights, just the venue itself looked so much better, and it was live, and we pulled it off. So thank you to everybody that watched it live, and to everybody that doesn't want to hear me sniffle my way. Like nothing happened. Like nothing in the world happened. I just ducked out like the Flash, and now I'm back. Alexander Zirianov, during the second year Patreon numbers didn't change much. How is this impacting EZA morale? It's impacting it well. We're not too concerned. We got a spike last year because of Box Peak. I don't know if you remember, there was a lot of people talk about like, yeah, the numbers were higher before. The numbers were higher before because we had very specific goals right after our first anniversary, where we wanted to fund Friend Code and Reaction Shots. Kyle also pitched Box Peak, and Trailer Jones was introduced at the same time. And so there were a lot of incentives directly to get shows for people. We are still, you know, above those levels to keep continuing doing Reaction Shots and Friend Code. Obviously, Box Peak was funded just in 1 month. And so there was a little bit of kind of like goal, I don't know if you say goal, but there was like tier chasing. We put things in front of people and we were like, go get that tier. We have not done a lot of that yet, but we do have plans later in the year to have fundraising similar things. Hopefully those numbers go up, you know, it would be nice. But it's, you know, at the same time, it's tiring, you know, it's like, it's work enough, it's tiring enough to maintain the status quo. You know, obviously 50K would be tremendous. We could, you know, afford a studio. It would be, mean big changes for Easy Allies. But at the same time, what if we move into a studio and then it's a year after that and we're hovering around 51, 52 and everybody's like, when's that 60K gonna happen, you know? What are you doing? Get that 60K. So there's always a goal, always some place to go. If I can sit here on the couch every week and hang out with you, I consider that a success. So that is not impacting my morale. But thanks for checking in. Fabian Winkler, and you know, I'm speaking on behalf of 8 other people, so if anyone watching this or hearing this from Easy Allies has low morale, let the audience know. Go out on Twitter. I have low morale. Fabian Winkler, have you ever considered to use the VR 180 camera? Time to put that in takeaways. Oh, everything's backwards. VR 180. I will look it up and let you know. Man, I've gone and caught a sniffle. Have you ever considered using a VR 180 camera for the weekly podcast or event reactions? For example, like the Lenovo Mirage camera. Such a camera would increase the feeling of being part of the discussion instead of just being a distant observer. That is the trick for some of the stuff that we do. There's a lot of us on camera at once. And so, yeah, it can feel kind of distant. I will just say that getting a new camera is something we would like to do in 2018. And so stay tuned. Possibly for more information about that. oh man, hopefully that's that. Torben B, in regards to Fortnite and your editorial, a little comment, and this was fascinating. I really liked. I did some research on this one. I'm currently also playing Save the World, which is indeed very relaxing and a great opportunity to catch up on streams and collect some sweet V-Bucks. A few days ago, I visited the Reddit for the first time, and for whatever reason, the community seemed livid with recent changes. What really surprised me, though, was how quite a few players who stated that they were in the high 90s requested a refund and got it, because of those changes and their progress being quote-unquote worthless now, which is... calm down. I'm all for consumer rights, but man, that escalation of entitlement is staggering. But as we all know, the end counts, never the journey. What? The end counts, never the journey? That's not... no. It all counts. The beginning, the end, the middle. It's all good. It's all relevant. Yeah, so for some context, what happened... So right now there is a spring event going on. The spring event, interestingly, encompasses a lot of different things. St. Patrick's Day is part of it, Valentine's Day was the beginning of it, and then kind of the overarching theme is the Chinese New Year, celebrating, kicking off the Year of the Dog. And so the weapons associated with this spring event are called dragon weapons, and they have, just kind of red shiny plated with little gold accents and a little bit of green in there, so like kind of a Chinese flair to the new armaments that were added to Save the World. And I think Fortnite has actually done a very good job of communicating with their community, but apparently they completely fumbled this and changed the stats. So basically, that you woke up, you jumped into Fortnite, and the gun that you had, that you just got, it's not a gun that you've had for 2 years, it's a gun that you just got from this event, wasn't as cool as you thought it was. But it wasn't just happening to you, it happened to everybody. And so saying then that one of your weapons is slightly less impactful than it was before now makes your progress worthless, I think is a little extreme. And also, I don't think it makes your progress worthless because we're talking about PvE. We're talking about going up against AI, so it's not like you don't have like a kill-death ratio or like a win-loss ratio that's being affected or something. So it's just when that zombie's lumbering toward you, he's gonna take one more step before he's dead, and that's enough for people to demand a refund. I'm not gonna claim what has value to someone versus what has value to me in terms of what should warrant a refund. If you want your money back and you can get it, go get it. But if you wanted your money back from Fortnite and they gave it to you, that's pretty cool. Some people were saying, keep in mind, it's not only refund, I think it's $40, $20 if you jump in during some of their specials that they do, but it's $40 to play the Save the World, to get into early access for Fortnite. Again, Battle Royale is free. The vastly more popular mode. And so these people aren't just getting $40 back. I saw somebody post on Reddit that they got $600 back because it's all of the purchases that they've made. And so I could see that frustration, and Fortnite was very vocal with saying we screwed up. And I think it's not only just this. I think it's a bottled up frustration about the way Save the World is being treated versus the way Battle Royale is treated, it's just called Battle Royale. Surprise, Battle Royale is way more supported than Save the World. When updates happen, they generally happen more to Battle Royale than Save the World. And a lot of Save the World players are like, what are we, chopped liver? Like those Battle Royale people didn't give you any money. I gave you money, and they're getting cooler stuff than I am. Case in point, all the emotes, which is so bizarre to me that like Battle Royale has like 500 emotes that you can get. Save the World has 2. There might be some way you can buy emotes to Save the World. I don't know. I've missed it. But I'm just a super casual player with Save the World. Even way before Battle Royale was announced, when I jumped into Save the World, it was like, okay, this is going to be my little thing. I don't expect a lot of the allies in the community to play it. I don't expect a lot of the allies that I work with and shoot shows with to play it. This will just kind of be my little thing that I do, a little stress reliever. There's a lot of check-in to me with Fortnite. There's like little missions you can send some of your survivors on. There's an experience that accumulates over time. So I'm generating experience right now. The second I'm done with this Cup of Jones, because I didn't have time before I started the stream today, because I got up at 9:30 and raced out here. 36 minutes apparently is the time it takes to come out and start Cup of Jones. But the second that this stream is over, I'm gonna boot up Fortnite and go in and get my XP. But so yeah, with games like that, things have different value to different people. And so when the stats of those dragon weapons went down, but not for me, because I don't like those dragon weapons. They're loud and sparkly, and their accuracy isn't great. And I'm a big fan of the automatic weapon. I don't like the burst fire from guns. I just like I like to just hold down that trigger and forget about it. And the automatic weapon that's in the Dragon Collection is just like a 3 or 5 shot. So, not a fan of those. Mikhail Aniel, the 8th of March, 2019 is the last time we're getting PS3 games on PS Plus. Could this be a sign that PS5 will be out sometime between April and November 2019? They don't want to give PS Plus games to third-gen consoles. It's an interesting point. Yeah, there's all sorts of... people are starting to wonder now if E3 this year is PS5 time, if they're going to announce that. I think we're good. I think the industry's in a really good space. I think we can survive another year. I think we got a lot of fun, excitement. Last of Us 2. We have just a lot of really, really big games coming out. Metroid Prime 4. I think the industry can survive another year without talking about brand new consoles. It was just last year that we were talking about the Xbox One X and what, you know, how that was elevating this generation to unbelievable levels of pretty shadows. But I don't think we get the PS5 that soon. Early 19 announcement, out end of 19, says Ferris K96. So yeah. Oh no. Does anyone know the name of Jones's Galaxy of Heroes Guild? I suddenly started playing the game more. It's Silent Continent. It's called Easy Allies. There's a 50-player cap on our Galaxy of Heroes Guild. And so, like, I'll go to bed and check and like, oh, we're at 49. And like, oh, okay, let me go into chat tomorrow and see who's available. And then I'll get up in the morning and we're at 50. I'm like, ugh. So, and admittedly, I don't spend as much time playing that game and managing that game as the leader of a guild should. But it's a mobile game, so not something like a, you know, something like a console game that you would potentially invest that much time into. Not as casually. Daniel Garza Andrade, why the suits on E3 and not your regular clothes? I like the formality, but why do you decide to wear them on the regular press conference? I decide to wear them, not everybody does. But it's just to make E3 different. We did it at GT time, kind of, I don't know, somebody brought it up and then it was like, yeah, we're doing suits. And I think we continue to do it Easy Allies. I think it plays, not necessarily plays better, but I think it's more important for us to do it at Easy Allies because we do not have, you know, 8 televisions in the background showing all sorts of fun stuff. We do not have a big fancy glassy table. We don't have cool colored lights, you know, like we do, but you know, not as much as we did. We don't have the same aesthetic that we did when we were at Defy Media doing E3 coverage there. And so now that we're here, it's kind of nice to jazz the stream up to do what we can as far as production values are concerned. And it just shows to us E3 is it. E3 is everything. E3 is the biggest party of the year. We threw a fun party this weekend. It pales in comparison to E3. E3 is a big deal for us. So, but some people don't wear suits. Eric Greinberg, what about making Hall of Greats a black tie event? I think it would be perfect. Meaning wear a tux. No, that's expensive, and there's a lot of standing around waiting while we're voting for stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I want to sit on the couch in a tux. Let me put it that way. Mikhail Hervel Nemo, what would you rate The Witcher 3 on the 100-point scale, and what would you rate Bloodborne on the 100-point scale? You talk about them being close, but how close? Bonus sneeze tip, if you press your tongue against the roof of your mouth with all your tongue strength, it is impossible for your body to sneeze. I will try to remember that. I don't know if that's necessarily worth being a takeaway. Come on! Let's just get the sneezes out of the way. Yeah. For those at home that I'm sure want really, really gross details about the sneezes, it's not an allergy thing. It's just like there's just a lot of stuff going on up there. I'm not gonna do that, and I'll tell you why, Mikkel. I didn't review either of those games. I didn't review Bloodborne. I didn't review The Witcher 3. I feel weird assigning a score. Especially because he said the 100-point scale. It's like, I don't know. You know, like, because it's been a while since I played those. And that's not the way reviews go. Like, you review a game and then you just reviewed it. You know, I'm going to be reviewing Far Cry 5 soon. And it's like, right when I'm done with that experience, I take notes while I'm playing and then I review those notes and I look at that and okay, did I have fun? Did I really enjoy that? And was it frustrating and why? And like, where am I at emotionally? And every time I look at those notes, like, how does that make me feel? Looking at all of the concerns that I had with the game, looking at the things that I liked about the game. I don't have those lists in front of me with Witcher. I don't have that fresh experience just finishing Bloodborne. I can imagine that The Witcher would edge out Bloodborne by maybe 0.2 or 0.3. But they would both definitely be in the 9s. They're the 2 best games released that year. There's no question. So that's all you're getting. Sorry. Miggity, I would hate if you guys weren't all living near each other. It would ruin the vibes of basically all the show's streams. Oh, because we were talking about moving, I think, last week. We were talking about, like, what if we all just separated, went to the other corners of the world. This is true, but at the same time, it is 2018. It is very exciting, the stuff that you can do online. But it was sad. While, when we first started Easy Allies, we did not have Michael Damiani on hand. I forget about that. I reference the first couple weeks of Easy Allies all the time, and I'm like, well, Damiani, blah, 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 and like Kyle or people have to correct me. They're like, he wasn't there. It took him a while to come in. It took the support of our lovely friends here on patreon.com/easyallies to make that happen. Stephen Beaumont, it looks as though from now on you will not be able to vote on your own game in Hall of Greats. This is true. This was brought up last week on Cup of Jones, and then that went into effect for last week when we did Hall of Greats. For me, this brings up an unlikely but very unwelcome addition to Hall of Greats: tanking. Say, for instance, there are two equally popular games, Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy VII, for instance. You brought Final Fantasy VI, and since you can't put 3 votes to your own game, or any votes, to ensure Final Fantasy VI's entry, you, instead of putting your votes toward Final Fantasy VII, you vote for Kyle's Cooking Mama entry. I would never do that. This is only a hypothetical problem, and I can only really see someone doing it as a poor taste joke. However, I feel like everyone has conducted themselves quite professionally in the past, and I hope that this continues. Yeah, if there's a Hall of Greats concern coming up that is a very good point. That is something we're not going to be doing in the future. That was something that came to light at the end of the last Hall of Greats, and we were like, yeah, that's bad. We're not going to do that in the future. If that happens again. In this case, because what happened before was, it doesn't matter if we're being nice to each other or if we're being, if we're conducting ourselves quite professionally, something had an unfair advantage, and that ain't cool. But I think we do conduct ourselves quite professionally. Things can get a little scratchy whenever we do when we do the rebuttal period, the 5 minutes after the initial 5-minute pitch for the entry to be in the Hall of Greats. But when we actually vote on stuff, that is done in confidence during the actual stream. But I did something that I've never done before, where I went back and watched because I was on Twitch. And when the concert ended, it automatically reloaded Hall of Greats. And so I was like, oh, I want to see what chat said while I was voting on stuff. And so I clicked that, and then, I think Damiani walked in after me, and then Ian walked in after him, and Blood. And so it was interesting to, like, I've never watched their little one-on-ones with the community when we come in and vote for the games for Hall of Greats. And so because that is televised, because that is live, because you can see the voting process, and we can, you can't talk to us because we don't want spoilers for us while we're in the voting process. But because that is done transparently, I'm not nervous about us voting. I'm not going to vote for Cooking Mama out of spite because I can't vote for 6 or something. Like, if I can't vote, if Final Fantasy VI and Final Fantasy VII go in, I'm not going to vote for 6 because I can't vote for my own. I'm going to vote for 7 because it's better than Cooking Mama. Then I'm going to cross my fingers. That's good. That's Hall of Greats. If Final Fantasy VI doesn't make it into Hall of Greats, somebody addresses this later in this episode. Final Fantasy VI doesn't make it into Hall of Greats, it does not make Final Fantasy VI a bad game. It just means that has not yet made it into the process of being recognized by all of the allies as one of the Hall of Greats. Professor Metal Gear, if you could pick one major deviation from an alternate timeline Earth, from any video game, movie, or book, you don't say TV show, but I'm going to pick a TV show, to incorporate to our Earth timeline, what would you choose? Definitely Fringe. Fringe is really funny. If you go back and watch Fringe, it's about, spoilers, it's about other dimensions, and they do interesting identifiers for you to tell. They do like they'll show like New York, and then boom, the towers are there and other things are happening that, it's clearly a different New York. And my favorite was there were Zeppelins. There's big airships, kind of like Batman the Animated Series, how the cops just kind of coast around the city in these giant airships. Love it. We need more airships. I mean, I call them they're blimps or Zeppelins, but be sweet if they were airships. Big Final Fantasy IX looking airships. Irunian's got a big comment, but it's all about theme park rides, so buckle up. I was curious. Oh man. Apologies for viewers and listeners. I was curious, is your objection to rides, quote unquote, that are just a moving chair in front of a movie screen, an objection to the format in general? No. Or just one of Disney using it too much in recent years. Disney and everybody. Kings Island, our local theme park here in Southwest Ohio, had one such motion theater for many years, though it seems to have been discontinued in recent years, and now I only ever see it used as a haunted house at Halloween. And I have some fond memories of it. I kind of like that, though. Like old theme park attractions that close down and then are reused only at Halloween. It's fun. They let it fall apart. No, keep those cobwebs. We need those for Halloween. Owned by Paramount at the time, the park had some interesting uses of film licenses. The mid-90s in particular stand out when they changed the motion theater from a Days of Thunder experience to James freaking Bond Brosnan style. I would love that. Complete with contextualizing the audience presence. A video played while waiting for your turn in the theater featuring Q introducing you to a set of special glasses Bond would be wearing through the mission, which would then transmit his POV to you, the secret agent, in training. While I wouldn't want a majority of rides to be just this, I do think there's a place for it in parks. Incidentally, the last thing I remember in the motion theater before it stopped being used was a SpongeBob thing that also added 3D glasses to the mix. Not nearly as cool as Bond, if you ask me. SpongeBob not cool as Bond? How dare you, Irunian? Irunian continues. I'm also interested in some further thoughts on the use. This is a completely separate post on. He was like, wait, I got more. And then he posted another post. On the use of original versus pre-existing IP for rides. Again, using Kings Island as an example, when Paramount owned the place, there were some very good uses of movie licenses, and some that were stretched at best. I don't care about movie licenses versus original IP. Original IP is not that important to me for rides. Obviously, it's better. Same thing as games. It's better to have new stuff, new characters, new creations, new things to love. But when a ride comes out that's based on an IP, especially at Disneyland, I'm not like, what? Because like most of the rides are. The best example I have of a ride that really used its license well was Tomb Raider, based on the first Angelina Jolie movie. The queue included places where you'd walk past and actual stone monkey soldiers used when filming, followed by a room with an introductory video that was clips from the film with a voiceover narration introducing a new dilemma. The ride itself was what's known as a top spin, which the entire seating area is flipped around numerous times as the special effects work their magic. Once Paramount sold the park and Tomb Raider became The Crypt, nobody cared. And much like the motion theater, the entire building is now just a haunted house during scare season. I've seen this! I've seen this Tomb Raider ride, actually, so I think I know what you're talking about. Where, yeah, it moved around while you're in it. Do you like things like this, where without that context, the whole experience is lacking, making these sorts of things bad rides? Or is relying on that added context to make a decent experience something special, a worthy effort in its own? I don't necessarily think you like rely on that context, but there's a lot to talk about here. But I like it. It helps. I like the dumb ideas for why you have glasses and 3D things. I think it's clever. I like when people put in that extra work to actually suggest, no, you're doing a thing here. You're not just going on a ride. This is happening for a reason. I just went to Disneyland this last weekend, and the context behind Indiana Jones is very silly, where it's like, it's the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. Everybody goes in there to get their wishes. Some people actually did. An actress went in and came out younger. A kid went in and came out rich. So it could work out well for you, but of course it doesn't, because someone in your, like, even if you close your eyes, it's like somebody in your car didn't. Who was it? There's just a lot of fun things. I like to play, my favorite thing to do in the Indiana Jones ride, when we turn the corner, there's like a hallway that it looks like you're going towards, and then you make this sharp left, and almost every time I go on the Indy ride, I go, let's go there! Because we're not going to, we're going to go to the left. Yeah, Irunian, I love the concept. I love Star Tours, I love the Simpsons ride, I loved Back to the Future back in the day. There's a way to do it. I brought up the Despicable Me ride because they don't even care about context on that ride. Why are you in there? I don't know. Why are you going on the ride? Who cares? There's no separation between you and the other people, so it's not like Star Tours where you're enclosed, or Back to the Future, which is now Simpsons, where there's a wall, so if you like really want to break the immersion, you can like look up over the side and be like, oh, there's other cars. I did that on Back to the Future. I haven't done that yet on Simpsons, so I don't know if you still can, but in Despicable Me, it's just like, you're all in a room. You're like, what? I can't. You're looking up at the screen, and it's like, this is your perspective. But it's like, all I do, if I look down and look to the right, there's a bunch of people in this room with me. So like, what are you talking about? And like, it's not like Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, which was in a theater before, where they actually shrunk the theater, whereas like they'd be looking through the screen at you in 3D, and and you could see these kind of broken edges of the side of the stage to create the illusion that like, no, they're actually holding the amphitheater right now and moving all of you around, and so that was a very cool effect. Man, oh man, my apologies. Sneeze break. I built up a lot of gunk this weekend apparently, just getting it all out. Gunk, what a word. So yeah, and I need to go get a prop for this next question. Like, So yeah, I like the concept. I think it's all about execution. I'm very curious to go on the Avatar ride that is at Animal Kingdom in Florida. Apparently, like, they really wanted you to feel like you're on a living beast, that like you can like feel the thing breathing that you're on. My mother and father-in-law went on the ride and they liked it. My mother-in-law was like, it was okay. My father-in-law was like, it was great. So I can imagine that's probably the reaction that Amanda and I will have whenever we get out there and check it out. But like an example of a bad, other than Despicable Me, something Disney did that I was like, okay, we don't need this, was they brought back Captain EO for a while, which was really great. The Michael Jackson 3D, Francis Ford Coppola, George Lucas produced epic. They brought that back, and they added motion to the seats. So you kind of felt like a baby being like, you know, like swaddled and like put to bed. So like at the end, it's like, I'm sending out a great love. And you're just like, I was like, this is an interesting effect. You know, like, I see what they're going for here, that there's like a beat to the chair. If you're listening to this, I'm bobbing back and forth uncontrollably. So yeah, that wasn't very fun. That wasn't very fun to do that, actually. That kind of upset my stomach a little bit. But VG Junkie has a very pertinent question that I will answer with a visual aid that you can't see at home, but trust me, it's real, it's happening. Very specific question. VG Junkie asks, is Gengar still around? Oh yeah, baby. There he is. But Gengar's going to stare at me for the rest of this Cup of Jones. What's up, Gengar? Yeah, Gengar's still around. Andy Zolkeefly, have you come across a moment when someone... I'm a little confused, Andy. I'm going to have a very possibly unsatisfying response to this question. Have you come across a moment when someone mentions to you about a specific game, your initial response is, huh? What's that? It's usually an indication to you that it is a game that you either have never heard of or is a terrible game. I had this reaction when I was purchasing my Nintendo Switch recently. The salesperson was trying to sell a game that I have never heard of, and I always replied with, huh? What's that? My brother did a search online and told me that the game was terrible. Do you have that similar reaction? Also, are Hubert and Ben going to break stuff during the E3 stream if the release date for Final Fantasy VII Remake has been announced? I have seen their reaction back at game trailers when FF7 Remake was announced. I hope they don't break stuff. No, they're not going to break stuff. I'm going to tell them not to break stuff. So no is the answer to that question. And yeah, I mean, being in my biz just seems like a very simple question, which is why I think I'm possibly answering it incorrectly. But, huh, what's that is... I should put that on a business card. Yeah, I say that all the time because people all the time are suggesting games I've never heard of before that are fascinating. And that's one of the reasons why I miss the great Ryan Stevens, who used to work with us at Game Trailers, is unfortunately not here at Easy Allies, has moved on to other fascinating enterprises. But Ryan Stevens is a gem because Ryan Stevens, when we're back at Game Trailers, would bring up the weirdest games. He would mention, oh yeah, did you ever play that for the Intellivision? I'm like, what, the what? And especially PC games, just really, really interesting stuff. And so it was always fun to check in with him and, you know, have him just one-off something. It was always nice to hear those little suggestions and things that he would introduce on Invisible Walls. So yeah, I missed that, but I love that, and it's my mind doesn't immediately go to a bad game. Well, I haven't heard of that. Well, that must suck. I haven't heard of a lot of stuff. I mean, VR, for example, like there's just a ton going on in VR, and it's tough to find those really, you know, awesome experiences because people have different tastes in VR, and there's just a lot to check out. Would you kindly, is a person that wrote this question, are you tired from an exhausting day and you are tired from an exhausting day and it's raining outside? What would be your favorite food and video game, or type of video game? Would you choose to relax? For me, it would be spaghetti bolognese and starting an RPG where I take all the time in the world for the character creation. Spaghetti bolognese, or bolognese, or I don't know, like the Italian way to say that. Yeah, something pasta-ish would be nice. At the same time, you know, one of the reasons I like having a smoothie in the morning is my hands aren't very busy when trying to eat it. So I do like things that I can just pop in there. Sushi's kind of nice because you just hulp, you know, and then back to the game. Unless you're like crazy and put a lot of sauce on it and stuff. But yeah, I do like pasta. I don't know if pasta is necessarily that comfort food. If I'm tired and it's raining outside, if it's raining, playing some kind of spooky game, playing a Silent Hill or playing Resident Evil 7 or playing something like that is really... I really dig it, especially at night. So if it rains during the month of October and I get a chance to play a scary game when it happens, it is hard to find me in a happier state. Unless maybe I'm at Disneyland. The Invisible Hours is coming to non-VR in April? Oh, cool. I didn't know about that. Buy some props so the allies break stuff at the end of E3 coverage. I mean, even if we do that, if they break something and little pieces of it go flying everywhere, and then, like, I don't find those pieces for, like, several weeks. Lori Livo. With 4 Hall of Greats this year, it will catch up. The early entries will be classics of some kind. I'm also bummed WoW will be disqualified for a year. At least 1 vote should have gone for it. I hear you. But here we are, a year later. A Dragon Quest is a DQ isn't so bad after all. So it's disqualified, I guess. I'm like, that's not Dragon Quest, is it? A DQ isn't so bad after all. I'm sure WoW will get in eventually. Question is, when will we get to the second round? Second round meaning when will I reintroduce WoW? I don't know. I kind of want to, because no one voted for it, and I'm a little salty about that. I kind of want somebody else to bring up WoW. WoW's out of my hands, you know. I kind of want to wait for like Huber to mention WoW for me to be like, oh, World of Warcraft, is it? Oh, okay, maybe I'll vote for it. Because I couldn't vote for World of Warcraft if I brought it. The Champ. Devil May Cry or Bayonetta? Devil May Cry. I haven't played Bayonetta. Sorry. I know. Which are you more excited for? DMC5 or Bayonetta 3? DMC5. And finally, which do you think will review better? DMC5 or Bayonetta 3? Bayonetta 3. Just based on experience. DMC games have been really hit or miss with people, where the people that like Bayonetta tend to really like Bayonetta 1, really like Bayonetta 2, and so if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Hopefully Bayonetta 3 is the best in the series. James Vest, would you ever consider doing a quarterly or one-off podcast video about theme parks? Say, get other video game people who love theme parks, such as Andre Seegers or Game Explained Rogers Base, Rocco from Mega 64, huge Disneyland fan, or others to talk about theme parks. Sure! I mean, first and foremost, it's more work, which is not something I'm going to sign up for right away. Probably shouldn't have said sure that enthusiastically. That sounds like fun. We talk about theme parks enough here on A Cup of Jones, I think, to cover the spectrum. But yeah, that would be neat. It would be fun to do that kind of in a Seinfeld comedians in cars getting coffee by actually going there, you know, like meeting up with someone who is a big fan of Universal Studios or Magic Mountain, and you know, maybe not in line so we disturb the other people, but just maybe find a cozy place in the park and chat about the park. I say that knowing that that would be super illegal. You can't just go into, be like, we're gonna shoot it. I mean, you can shoot home videos and stuff, but just like, yeah, we're making money on this thing that we're shooting. Disneyland's probably not a big fan of that, but I wonder if you could get approval from those parks. But just like, we're just gonna go over here to shoot a thing. I guess if you shoot it outside the park, you're okay. But how tempting is it? You're at a theme park and you want to have a good time. You're feeling, got lots of energy. You know, you're just feeling wacky. I want to push every button and pull every switch. And then you see 2 people just very seriously like, so I want you to know, like, how tempting would it be to just go behind them and be like, I'm in a theme park? So I don't know. Mr. M, seeing as you've got the piece of paper in front of you with the list of questions that you are answering, that implies that you've got a list on a Word document on or somewhere. Could you please copy that list and whack it in the YouTube whack it in the YouTube description after you finish or something? I can't watch every episode of this, but would like to ask questions every now and then, and I don't really want to search through 3 months worth of Patreon's horrible comment system to not just repeat another question someone else asked. As always, drink some damn mango nectar, try whacking it into a smoothie. I love the whacking it. I'm just gonna whack it in there. Just gonna whack it. You wanna put that in there? Whack it. Whack it good. I don't know how that particular version of it tastes, so be my lab rat for me. I don't like the mangoes. I like the mango patrons. If you're a patron called Mango, I very much like you. If you are a mango smoothie, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's worth trying. But sorry, Mr. M. Sorry about the disappointment there. But the posting of the thing might not be a bad idea. I can maybe try that next week. Put the feedback, which is not there. It's over here. Post the questions. I try to be very tolerant of repeated questions. So every now and then, if it's been a couple weeks since I answered something and I get it again, I'll give a little short version of it. But I hear you. You want your question to be fresh. You want it to be certified fresh. So I will consider that and see if I can implement that. Lots of fun changes. Audio only changes to Cup of Jones. We've been doing that lately. We got our date right finally, so everyone in the world can just look at that and know what day it is. The Finnish Ally. About the Hall of Greats. I absolutely loved every second of your last induction stream. They have been induction stream. Induction scream! They have been constantly improving, and you have introduced some great changes along the way. Not being able to vote for your own game is one of them. Since some allies tend to vote for their own game and some don't, this makes the process more legitimate. However, the last stream revealed an issue you might want to address. Resident Evil 4 is a great game, and it should be in the Hall of Greats, but it had a clear advantage. Since you can't vote for your own game, and Brad wasn't there, RE4 was the only game 8 people could vote for. While the max amount of points every other game could get was 21, Resident Evil was the only one game that could get 24. The Finnish ally is correct. That will be fixed. That we will not do that. If you cannot make it, if Brad got a migraine, which I can sympathize with, that is, I can't do anything. If I get a migraine, sorry. If I get a migraine before Cup of Jones, you are not getting a Cup of Jones that day. So Brad took off. What we should have done is taken Resident Evil 4 out of the equation. We should not vote on a game that yeah, we shouldn't change the point spread. You know, it's not like someone's gonna take advantage of that. That's just mathematically not even. So that's not a cool thing. Diamond Crusader wrote a very passionate post that is a little touch and go. It brings up some subject matter that is just kind of weird to jump into and then get back to regular questions. So I'm going to handle it. I'll give you the short of it. It's about hypersexual video games and Nazis. So I'm going to cover that in the editorial this week. So if you are like, whoa, Jones, I really don't want to get into hypersexual video games and Nazis right now. I hear you. I will get into that in the editorial, so feel free to bail when I get to the editorial. But 2 specific points Diamond Crusader came up that I want to talk about. So I'm going to skip that question now, give you a little tease for what the editorial today is going to be. Joetown, who does not comment a lot for Cup of Jones. This might be more of a Kyle thing than a Jones thing, but here it goes anyway. I think, and for that reason, which is the a segment that we do at the beginning of the Easy Allies podcast now, is too good an idea to just keep the intro of the podcast. Keep it to the intro of the podcast. It could very easily be seen as an excellent standalone podcast. Thoughts? Sure, there's just one major problem, Joetown. We cannot do more podcasts. We have a rule. No more podcasts. It's like in Wayne's World when it says no Stairway to Heaven in the store. We have a sign up on the wall. We don't really. But we have a sign up on the wall that says no more podcasts. No more podcasts until we do a scripted standalone show. Because if we added another podcasts, some people's head would explode. Michael G, you nominated Pong before Final Fantasy VI? Come on, man. I did. I nominated Pong knowing full well it wasn't going to win, but I wanted to introduce something from way back from our past. I wanted to test the waters of not only how to pitch a game that old, but how it would be received. I made the point that Pong was a game that likely most of the allies had played, and the stuff that was in Hall of Greats maybe doesn't fit into that category. Ian Hink very abruptly shot me down effectively by asking the room if everyone had played Street Fighter and Ocarina of Time, and everybody had, so that was kind of a moot point on my part. But it's nice to get educated about those tactics and how to handle people. We'll actually get into that a little bit later, so it's nice to somebody mentioned later on, maybe I can skip to it, but they were just like, oh, you haven't pitched Final Fantasy VI yet. But it's nice to get used to the rhythm of a Hall of Greats and how that goes, and get better at pitching things and get better at rebutting games. And so even though Final Fantasy VI has not been introduced by anybody yet, it's nice to have, to get better at performing the Hall of Greats. And so by the time one of us does bring Final Fantasy VI, hopefully it is not botched. Mumbleton, what's one of your favorite Monty Python skits? Thanks to all of your positivity, and I'm really excited to watch this, the 2-year anniversary. I don't know the name of it, but it is it's when a bunch of old ladies reenact Pearl Harbor. That's my favorite. That to me really encapsulates a lot of what makes Monty Python great. Lots of gender bending, playing just various characters, playing men and women completely interchangeably, playing very, very ugly women, the fear not to make yourself look stupid, the fear not to get dirty, the fear or not to just basically to put yourself out there and just be completely wacky. And I don't want to spoil it for you. It's pretty funny. So go Monty Python. I guess Pearl Harbor would probably get you to it. Yeah. Rob Bob Will. I don't know if that person has 3 names or if this is 3 people asking a question. Do you think any of the allies would be willing to do an occasional video game music appreciation stream? Interesting idea. I've been binging old Bosman v. Wozniak episodes, which is what gave me the idea. The concept would be similar. An ally picks a low-key, story-free game to play, load up soundtrack bot, and everybody just sits back and enjoys the great vibes together. I'm not exactly sure how that works, so I'll talk to Kyle about that. I know that just throwing music out there can be kind of tricky when we stream live on Twitch because we're just kind of asking to get flagged. But I don't know, maybe if we just don't make a lot of money on that one stream, that could be fun to do. But that is I think I wrote that one down. Low-key music stream. Music appreciation stream, yeah. I typed that one out as an official takeaway. Henry Ramirez back on 10/26/16, meaning October 26th, 2016. You and Huber began playing Resident Evil Remake. Will you ever go back to finish the game? Yes, on October 26th, 2018. I don't know. We should. But there's a lot of games. It's in the Hall of Greats now, so somebody's got to stream it at some point. OTAPS. Or OT Taps. Great job getting Ben Hansen on the podcast. His chemistry with you guys worked really well. I agree. Ben Hansen was on our last episode of the Easy Allies podcast, if you want to go check it out, from Game Informer. And it was good to see a new face, not that I don't enjoy all the regular allies appearing. What was the reaction within EZA when you announced this? Did anyone have to move aside? I mean, obviously. Yeah, and that kind of changes up tonight. I think both mics are on the podcast tonight. So I think Huber had to get bumped. Get out of here, Huber. It would have been fun if Ben got bumped. You swapping one Ben for another Ben. What was the reaction within EZA when you announced this? How difficult was it to line Ben up? Is this a result of making more of an effort to network with other outlets behind the scenes, or did the stars just align? Both. This is something that we have been open to. It's something that we've discussed, the possibility of bringing in other people into the podcast. And Ben was just in town, and Ben was talking with Kyle, and he was like, hey, I'd like to be on something. What could I be on? And Kyle said, possibly the podcast. And he said, that sounds great. And it's nice because Ben hosts his own podcast, the Game Informer podcast. And so he definitely had a respect for how things go. And I think the thing that impressed me the most was we said, this is Rufus. We do a segment called Love and Respect. And Kyle played Rufus. And Ben was like, I got it. And he, Love and Respect. He got it right away. He knew it was up. So Ben's a good man. And that was a very good podcast. And it was really nice to have his take. He brought his own game. Ben brought a game called where he read quotes from box art, and we tried to guess what game that was. And Kyle botched the rules of the game twice. And having Kyle get so livid when people do not understand the rules of the games that he presents or the bits that he tries to pull off on our Easy Allies podcast, for him to screw up Ben's thing 2 times in a row directly gave me much joy. I enjoyed that. Sometimes Kyle asks us what's our favorite moment from that podcast, and that was it, clearly. Back in the box trivia. And he does that at Game Informer, so if you want to go over and give our friends at Game Informer some views on their podcast, it is an excellent podcast. I recommend it. Youngstar, apologies if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you said that if you picked Halo, it wouldn't stand a chance. If so, you're putting what you think others will think above yours, and are then not picking a Hall of Great, but a game you think the others would also pick. Just wrong. I hear your concerns, Youngstar, and that must be frustrating. If I am, I mean, it's also got to be frustrating for Halo fans that I say Halo wouldn't stand a chance. It would. It just depends on when. What's the right time to bring that in? But I have to be brutally honest with you, Youngstar. You're putting what you think others will think above yours. Yeah. Yes, that's how voting works. I'm bringing, if you want someone to be elected into political office, it's not always the best time to put the person in there that you think you want the most. You have to put someone in that position that's going to win. You know, you got to put somebody in there, unless, what are you doing? You know, unless, you know, unless you're like me with Pong, you know, where I'm like, Pong's not going to win, but I want to pitch Pong. You know, I want to get in there and I want to see what happens with the room. And I also want to, not correct, but comment on something you mentioned where it's like you're not picking a Hall of Great. There are many, many great games. I can think of 50 easily. Maybe not off the top of my head. It might take a little bit, but I could think of many, many games. If anybody issued a top 100 list ever, I'm sure each of those games on that list, most of them, maybe 90, maybe 90 of the 300 games that Game Informer just put in their top 300. would be considered that I would be comfortable with being in the Hall of Greats. So maybe saying, okay, this isn't good for Final Fantasy VI, but I'm gonna bring, you know, Tetris. It's not like I'm not gonna do Final Fantasy VI, I'm gonna do Tetris instead because I think Tetris will get in. That doesn't disqualify Tetris from being an amazing video game. So I don't think anyone has ever brought a game, including Dawn's Deep Cuts, that I would not be comfortable with that being in the Hall of Greats. Because it's very passionate for the people that introduced it, and they made very good points about why it is an excellent video game. So, the frustration with us trying to not manipulate, but understand the limitations of the system to try to get something successfully placed into the Hall of Greats is how Hall of Greats work. You know, if you're it's how Hall of Fames work. You know, it's like, yeah, you have good sports players or good musicians and you want to get them into the Hall of Fame, but you got to think, what's the climate this year? What is everybody, what are people willing to vote on? So Pandemonium looked pretty good, I got to say, yeah. I hope to play that game someday. Joseph LaRussa, do you own that tux or do you rent it? I rent it. For occasions, if you own it, what did it run you? Didn't run me, you know, that much because I rented it. I've always heard they're insanely expensive. They are, which is why I rent. It's interesting you mentioned that tux. If you, for those paying close attention, I wore a different tux this year. I had a red bow tie and a red vest last year, and I had the like pointy collar, where it like does a little penguin flourish. Penguins are round. I don't know why I said the pointy thing was a penguin flourish, but the collar just kind of like jets out. I'm sure that has a name, and the collar that I got, which is more of a just kind of smooth, straight line, you know, down the chest. That was the. WoW and SimCity will be unbanned in the next Hall of Greats. SimCity, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to bring SimCity, though. Honestly, at this point, I don't know what my next Hall of Greats game is going to be. I kind of want to do a video. I don't have time. I generally don't have time to do that. And when the next Hall of Greats comes around, I don't think I'll be reviewing a game, and I won't be working on a retrospective, I believe. So it would be fun to work on that. Small Leviathan, with the Souls retrospective finally coming to a close, I'd like to know what your favorite Souls bosses are. Give me either a top 5 or your favorite boss in each game, whichever you prefer. I'm going to do my favorite in each game. My personal favorite is the Orphan of Cause, a boss that I feel is completely unmatched in emotional impact, difficulty, and sheer ferocity. It is also my favorite boss theme in the series, except for maybe the Abyss Watchers theme, which is just top-notch. Yeah, these are going to be different because my pick for Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, and Dark Souls 3 are all based on just looking at the boss and the dynamics. I can't speak to the emotional impact because I haven't played those games. Some of them I know the context behind it, but I haven't experienced that context in the game and then got into the boss fight, so I can't speak from that experience. Bloodborne, I'm just going to pick my favorite to fight. Again, kind of one of my criticisms of Bloodborne. I didn't really get into the story of Bloodborne because to me the story of Bloodborne was kind of like, where are you, story? Like, it just wasn't. I was told after the fact, no, you needed to be there at that moment, talk to that person, and then they go here, and then you talk to them, and then it's relevant. And I'm like, well, I didn't do that, so I guess I played the game wrong. I guess I'm dumb that I didn't absorb Bloodborne the way I should. I don't know. Like, I think a lot of people played 3 Souls games, and so then they went into Bloodborne and were like, I know how this works. That ledge is clearly a secret area. I didn't know that. So, to me, there was very little story to Bloodborne because I didn't have any interest in talking to people. Let's not make fun of Bloodborne. But my favorite Bloodborne boss was the Shadows of Yharnam. The Shadows of Yharnam is a classic setup that it was neat to see also being done in the other Souls games where you're fighting 3 targets and they all have different abilities, and I think about halfway through or once you kill one of them, the others get pissed off and they get new abilities. It's the Ornstein and Smough setup where you kind of have to manage, like, do I want to kill them both at the same time or do I want to take one out first and then focus on the other? And I remember the Shadows of Yharnam being very hard. I remember getting to that point. I mean, obviously all of the fights in Bloodborne and the other games are difficult in some way. And there was no fight in Bloodborne that I finished on the first pass. But I remember Shadows of Yharnam being very challenging, and I remember really enjoying that challenge. I remember every dodge and every time I was able to get in close in something. I wasn't frustrated with the struggle of Shadows of Yharnam, even though I think it took me like 6 or 7 times to finish it. And so I remember going in each time with just my heart beating, being like, I think I can do this. I think I can do this. I have the tools. I have the ability to finish this. It's just that they're chucking fire at me and crazy stuff. It's hard. So just from looking at a distance, my favorite boss fight from Demon Souls is Maiden Astrea. It is a fairly unconventional boss fight. I don't think it's that difficult because it's very linear. You're in like a hallway, but there is a knight that is protecting his beloved or family member. I don't remember the connection between the knight and Maiden Astrea, I believe you can possibly spare Maiden Astrea. Like, you don't have to finish that boss fight, I just thought that the setup for that was very fascinating. The Gaping Dragon is my favorite boss from Dark Souls, because look at that thing. That's crazy. You can cut its tail off. It's like a big dragon, but it opens up its rib cage. It's got big jaws in its chest, and it's just a fascinating looking boss design. Dark Souls 2, I don't think I put footage of this in the retro, which is unfortunate, because going back through, full disclosure, Small Leviathan, off the top of my head, I couldn't remember any of the names of these bosses, so I had to go back through and look at the footage. And nothing from Dark Souls 2 really stood out from memory, and so I went through and revisited all of the boss fights, and the Looking Glass Knight, I think, is fascinating. I don't know if I completely understand the mechanics of that fight, but just visually watching that fight take place was really interesting. The knight had a shield, and inside of the shield was another warrior, and you smashed the shield, and that warrior came out, and you had to fight them too. Again, haven't played it, but just contextually and visually and just difficulty-wise, the princes, Lorien and Lothric, that you fight near the end of Dark Souls 3 looked really fascinating. I believe it's Lothric that's the older brother. Prince Lorien is on his shoulder, so you have another prince that's like hanging on to him that I think he does ranged attacks. And so just visually, I thought that was very interesting, having like the smaller character kind of latching on to the other character. So you're technically fighting two people, but they're moving as one. And I thought that was very interesting, just visually. So there you go. Astrea is where the emotional impact is at. Well, there you go. So some of these I liked for mechanics, some of them I liked for the emotional impact, and just they seemed different. They seemed very unique in what they tried to do in their respective games. And sorry to all Bloodborne fans if I got a little salty there. Taro Tartar. Would you check out and stream Subnautica? I want to. Subnautica is a tempting game to jump into. I'm afraid I'm going to fall off the deep end and be lost forever. From the gameplay I've seen with other streamers, I believe that it would be right up your alley. It is. With survival aspects, home building, and cataloging items, it's really cool that you're currently... Oh, moving on. It's really cool that you're currently working on an X-Men pilot television show. My question for... I'm currently working on a pilot for an X-Men television show. My question for the topic is, who would you cast for the original X-Men team members? I don't know. I would have to put a lot of work into that. Taro Tartar, and I haven't, and I'm not really great at casting. I gotta be honest. When someone is cast in a role, then I have opinions, but when a part comes up and people are like, ooh, who would you want to play that? My brain is empty. I don't know why. I don't think that way. It's fascinating to me to meet people. You know, Amanda has had a lot of agents in her career over the years, and so it's fascinating to meet these people that are like, you know, they remind me of is it Slughorn? Who's the character from Harry Potter that has his like little favorite students, you know, and he's like, he has his shelf where he puts all his students up and all the people that he's helped over the years, and I feel like casting agents are like that, where they're like, my favorites, you know, the people that they bring in. It's The Isle of Dogs looks really cool. It's an animated movie, stop-motion animated movie coming out from the same team that put together the Fantastic Mr. Fox. But it kind of frustrates me because it's like the same cast as Fantastic Mr. Fox. It's the same people. It's like, you know, I'm glad Bill Murray's in it, but he's just being Bill Murray. You know, it's like I'm glad Ed Norton's in it, but he's the same exact voice, and I get that's the style. Yeah, casting can be strange. Lots of different themes here in this question. And for the last question, I think you had mentioned that you played the tabletop RPG Vampire the Masquerade. I have. I once asked Ben this question. He expressed the difficulty in finding time and the hurdle of the allies learning how to play. I have no experience in the pen and paper RPG, only exposure to World of Darkness was the fantastic game, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, which I have never played and would like to one day. But I just really want to see you guys roleplay as vampires. I'll be okay with the Fiasconauts episode 2. Yeah, the thing I enjoyed most about playing Vampire the Masquerade, my special ability, I don't know what you'd call it, my talent of choice was lying. I would be very disingenuous to people, but that would require me to approach a person, attempt a lie, and then roll the dice. And if the dice was bad, now I'm stuck talking to that person. And so if the lie didn't take, maybe I can try lying again. But of course I'm getting myself in trouble. And so it was, those moments were fun. Like, I think in games when you try something and it fails, sometimes that can be very frustrating. In tabletop, sometimes that leads to the absolute best moment of the night. So that would be fun. But compared to, for me, I learned Vampire the Masquerade before I learned D&D 5th edition, and so it'd be interesting for those allies that play D&D a lot to go backwards because it's very different. One thing that I liked that you can't specifically do in D&D that I think you can do in Vampire is you can aim at something. I'm a big ranged guy in both digital video games and tabletop, and so when I would attack a target in D&D, I would just shoot, and then based on the strength of my roll, that would determine the impact of my attack. And so sometimes the DM could tell, I really want to headshot this guy, and I would roll a 20, and he'd be like, you headshot him. I'm like, yeah, So sometimes I could kind of aim specifically, but I believe if memory serves, in Vampire the Masquerade, I could be like, I want to shoot his foot, I want to shoot his hand, I want to just shoot over him, I want to, because I did pistols. So, but that might be just the way we play the game. I might be just making that up. I might have dreamt that. I don't know. But yeah, that would be fun. It would be fun to play vampires because I think even more than playing vampires is Vampire the Masquerade takes place on Earth, in our world. And so it'd be fun to place it in LA. Like my campaign when I played it was in LA, and so we could bring up GPS and look like, oh, we're there? Oh, okay. And like look at the map and be like, yeah, let's go over there to that street. Let's see what's over there. So it's kind of fun to like have access to the map. Cam Smith, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, or Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back? Empire Strikes Back. Both scores are being played by the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra last year, and I can only choose one to attend. Is the choice as obvious as I think it is? Empire Strikes Back, come on. And also bonus points if you pronounce Melbourne like an Aussie. Melbourne? Is it Melbourne? Melbourne? I don't know. Melbourne. How do Aussies pronounce it? I got it wrong. I botched it. Bonus points. Not received. Gustav Strumbum. Did I get it right? Gustav messaged me on Twitter and told me how to pronounce his name. It's tough because when you do Google Translate, it's Swedish, and when you do Google Translate and you click on it, it's like Strumbum. Like there's a little chutzpah in there. But it's not Strombum, it's Strumbum. So I believe, again, I got to do the American version of the Swedish pronunciation. We got to find the middle ground there between the cultures, because I don't want to Alex Trebek it, as I refer to that type of speech. Recently, the publisher of Stardew Valley, which is Chucklefish, brought their next game back into the spotlight a little bit by changing the name of the said game from Spellbound to its new name, Witchbrook. How much do you think the name of a game, and especially a new IP, matters? Way too much. I value the name of a game way more than is probably warranted. Names of games are very, 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 very important to me. I was livid when they changed Final Fantasy, what was it called? Versus 12? 12 versus Final versus Fantasy versus? I don't even remember. They've retconned it from my brain. Versus Final Fantasy 13? Australians don't pronounce R's. Oh, okay. Melbourne? What? Who knows? Versus 13, Final Fantasy, or I think it was like Versus 13 Final Fantasy or something. When that became 15, that really pissed me off because it was a band-aid. It was, oh, people don't like this game. Oh, let's erase whatever we were planning to do with Final Fantasy 15. They like it again, yay! It's like I don't like that. I don't like games that have superfluous subtitles where you just like, oh, that's a cool game. The Hunt, that's neat. It's like Showdown, like. Why the Showdown? The Hunt. There's an excellent title. I don't know if it's called that now, but I think it was The Hunt something else. And I'm like, you don't need that. When Horizon was first out, I was like, Zero Dawn? Why'd you call it Horizon? Why do you go Zero Dawn? And then I got into the game and I was like, oh, okay. Zero Dawn's kind of cool, actually, like what Zero Dawn is. And so I'm like, all right, I'll give you that. And, the next game can be called Horizon Future Glasses. I don't know. I really hate Rise of the Tomb Raider and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. Barf. Just call it Tomb Raider 2, Tomb Raider 3, or Tomb Raider and then something else behind that. But like, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. What? I would be very surprised if Shadow of the Tomb Raider has any relevance at all when you're actually playing the game. The whole idea, Rise of the Tomb Raider. The first one was the Rise of the Tomb Raider. How do you rise? I'm rising at my job. Rise of the Easy Allies. You know, like video game titles can be extremely stupid, and so I understand my opinions on the matter can be very exclusive. So if you're like, whoa, Jones, I don't agree with you at all, I understand. How much do you think a name of a game, and especially new IP, matters? That. And what do you think of this particular change? I think Witchbrook is cooler. Spellbound is like a word, Witchbrook is a name of the thing. So I kind of like it being the name of that. I think Witchbrook is the name of the school that you're going to. And what do you think of the particular change? Lastly, if you haven't seen or heard of this game before, I have. Consider checking it out before the stream. If not, Spellbound/Witchbrook is a game where you play as a young witch or wizard just starting their first school year in a magical school. Think Harry Potter. A magic school RPG, if you will. The art style is very much in the Stardew Valley direction, but in my opinion, Witchbrook looks better and a bit less pixely, more smooth. Wait, consider checking it out before the stream. Is it out? I know it's coming to Switch, so I was curious to check it out on Switch, and Amanda will... the second she's done with Dragon Quest Builders, Amanda, and she's on Chapter 4, by the way. Amanda's at the end. She got to Tantagel, or Tantagel. This is right up Amanda's alley. Stardew Valley was a little slow for me. I tried getting into Stardew Valley twice. I played it on PC, and I played it on Switch. And I couldn't, you know, like, there's a grind. There's like a, third-year concert title suggestions so far are Kiwami, Electric Boogaloo, and Versus Concert 2. Versus Concert 2 would really be great. Acromat is playing Builders right now. That's awesome. But Witchbrook seems... I just could, like, there's like a daily vibe in Stardew Valley where you're like, I do my things, I go to bed, I get up the next day. I do more things, I go to bed, I get up the next day, I do more things. And then, you know, your Harvest Moon, your Animal Crossing, you get into that groove of what a day means, what you need to do before you go to bed, and what you do the next day. I never got there. It never clicked. I never got to that point where it was like, now I'm in the groove. It was like, find 40 villagers, and I couldn't find them. You know, I found like 18, or however many, 10 or whatever. They were just weird quests that just, in my mind, didn't incentivize me to get into that grind. Sebastian Hall, we all know that you are married to the awesome, talented Amanda Troop. Or Amanda Talented Troop. How come you decided to keep your own last names? Is it due to your presence in the industry, or just wasn't too bothered about it? Just wondering, as I've seen a lot of comments lately, isn't that Amanda Jones when they're referring to Troop, and I always feel an urge to correct them. I mean, you don't need to correct them. You know, she's as much Amanda Jones as I am Brandon Troop. Amanda didn't change her name. Typically, the custom, you know, I can at least speak for the United States, is for the bride to take the surname of the groom. Didn't in this case, because by that time, Amanda had a lot of headshots printed. Amanda had a website that's amandatroop.com. Amanda had, you know, she's IMDb registered as Amanda Troop. She's business cards. She's in all of these databases for all these casting agencies as Amanda Troop. And so, the name Troop, the name Amanda Troop, was her brand. You know, it's like Easy Allies. It's like if I got married and had to change the name of Easy Allies. You know, imagine how frustrating that would be. And so, very early on in our relationship, she's like, FYI, if this gets serious, I ain't changing my name. And I was like, okay. I mean, the question, it's both. Amanda didn't change her name due to her presence in the industry. I wasn't too bothered about it. So there you go. Both answers are correct. Aurelian, if a new ally joins the team as a full-time member, how do you think you would announce that? A build-up over many days or weeks, waiting for a special occasion like an anniversary concert or an easy livin', or just on a regular Tuesday stream without warning? Hello everyone, here's the new guy. I think you can just say, Aurelian, you don't have to go with the last name. So yeah, it'll just be Aurelian from now on. As long as I remember that. I recall bringing Damiani in, which was very fun. Damiani came into town. We didn't announce that he was going to be coming. We might have hinted at it. But Damiani in the middle of one stream, it'd be fun if somebody clipped that out. I'd love to go back and watch that. Where Damiani just came in and sat down on the couch. We were like, oh, hey, Damiani. Anyway, and so it was fun to kind of be, just shadow drop him like that. But it'd be weird to shadow drop someone that you're not familiar with. We could maybe do that, a shadow drop, if you were familiar with that person, if it was someone that you had seen either working at a different outlet or as someone that you were familiar that we had worked with. It's fun to conceive of, Aurelian, boy, oh boy, is that far off. You know, we could maybe, you know, like this for Easy Allies and Concert Revengeance, we hired some people. Like I hired my pianist, we hired the band, you know, to perform. So we have hired people that have worked with us on Easy Allies stuff, but not to the level that I would consider them an ally, meaning they're going to start reviewing games. You're going to see them stream once a week. They're going to be on the podcast now. Is so far off, you know, even if we get to 50K, that's not in the cards. You know, maybe this is a 60K goal to bring in a 10th, but I could see us bringing in people that work with Easy Allies, but I don't think we need more people on the group stream. I don't think we need more people, more cooks in the kitchen. If we were to bring somebody on, it would be for a specific role, not necessarily to have another quote-unquote ally. So don't count on that happening anytime soon. Kenny Montenegro, pronounced Kenny plus AMR. Kenny Montenegro, but it's pronounced Kenny, the plus sign, A period, M period, R period. Kenny plus AMR, or Kenny AMR. That's a tough one to remember, I'm gonna be honest. You might want to change your name on Patreon or mention that every single time. Kenny AMR says, hello, I have a quick question. Besides making the Easy A podcast available for patrons 2 days in advance, would it be possible to also stream it live, just like Cuppet Jones on YouTube? It would be interesting to have some live interactions with chat, but it may be difficult for you. Either way, amazing job, guys. Congrats on your 2nd anniversary. That is a luxury, that we don't do that live. Sometimes we need a bathroom break during podcast halftime. Sometimes Kyle botches the intro. Sometimes we forget something halfway through it. Sometimes we realize, oh, we need to watch a video, and so we'll do an invisible cut. Sometimes something's spoiled. That's happened, where someone has an preview or review embargo, and a question comes up either in love and respect or maybe just offhand from Kyle, and the person will be like, oh yeah, well the thing about this mission is blah, 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 and then after the podcast I'll be like, wait a minute, and I'll check the fine print and be like, no, we shouldn't have said that. And so you might see a quick dissolve or fade out, fade in to just cover that, like, oops, we shouldn't have said that. So for that reason, and for that reason, I'm out on doing it live. Jason Wallstrom, I want to talk about Wayne's World. It was mentioned on last week's Cuppet Jones, and a thought had popped into my head the last time I'd watched Wayne's World. I've watched the movie many times, and I've always been entertained, but now, in this day and age of podcasts and Twitch streams and YouTubers and Patreon, with creators needing help from viewers to chip in and support artists, Wayne Campbell comes off like a real jerk when it comes to having a sponsor like Noah's Arcade. Most people would kill to have a sponsor like that. Wayne feels like having the owner of a prominent, successful arcade being a guest on his show spoils the integrity of his lame, closed-circuit, aimless TV show. I agree with you, but it is funny, and I think that's why that was done. I don't think we're supposed to like Wayne, necessarily. Noah Vanderhoff and his wife seemed like really nice people, and Wayne went out of his way to be a jerk. One of the other things, too, though, I mean, the guy who has the buzz suck is also nice, but making fun of him is funny. I mean, that's like part of Wayne's World. It's like we have the guest, we make fun of him, get off the show. So I think that's fine. It's Easy Allies, it's excellent. But I love this perspective. As a creator and a podcaster myself, I'm truly ashamed of Wayne Campbell's behavior when I rewatch Wayne's World. Wayne is no longer a hero in my eyes, but he is now the villain. In caps, capital T, capital V. Now my question for you, Brandon, is would Easy A accept Noah's Arcade as a sponsor of the podcast? I would love to have an arcade be a sponsor of our podcast. It'd be tough because arcades are in a place. If we're like, hey, Noah's Arcade in, where is he? I know Mike Myers is from Canada, so that's technically where Wayne's World originated, but Aurora, Illinois. Yeah, it was in there. So yeah, if you're not in Aurora, Illinois, you can't go to Noah's Arcade, so them being a sponsor is not really going to help people that are in Australia or, you know, Russia or Germany. But Noah's Arcade, of course, would be an amazing sponsor, just arcade in general. I just opened my mouth and out it came. Robert Seven Lee, another big fan of Quantum Leap here. Sam Beckett and his moral compass is what drew me to the show. Mentioned Quantum Leap last week because people said, hey, you're working on a sci-fi show, what's it like? And I said, it's kind of like Quantum Leap. The series started almost 30 years ago and wasn't afraid to tackle difficult issues like treatment of women, racism, and sexuality, which are all still relevant today. And through it all, we have a character who would fight for what's right, even when it's easier to follow suit with everyone else. Sam Beckett was a role model for me growing up and taught me to respect all people and not to prejudge. I hate to admit this, but my family has misconception about certain races, and although I didn't completely share their views, it was this show that made me stand up and tell them it's not right. decency, caring, and respect is what I took away from the show, and I'm thankful for it. It was also entertaining, and I also loved the whole time travel aspect. I'm curious to know what you liked about the show. A fun fact for me in Quantum Leap, the finale of Quantum Leap was late at night, past my bedtime, and I borrowed the small television from my dad's office, and I snuck it upstairs, up into my bunk bed, and I watched the finale of Quantum Leap. And I was confused. I saw every episode of Quantum Leap. I had a friend of mine in school that actually printed out, because this is before the internet, typed out and printed out every single episode. Not the script, but like who he was, when it was, where he was, what the goal was. But one of the things I liked about the show, Robert, that you didn't specifically mention was. So it was funny to me that I had that reference knowledge, talk to this person. That person was a big nerd, by the way. Talk to that person in a good way. About Quantum Leap a lot, and then I watched the last show, and I was like, did I miss something? The last episode of Quantum Leap is very, very strange. I'd be kind of curious to go back, being older and maybe a little wiser, and watch it again and see like, oh, I see what they're getting at. And it's also kind of sad. It ends on a sad note, that Quantum Leap. So if you're going to go back and rewatch, prep yourself. Where is Quantum Leap? Is it on Amazon or something? Is there like a way to watch it now? I never got the DVDs. Bjorn or Haraldsvik. Oh, I'm sorry. The thing I liked about Quantum Leap is it was never crystal clear what the problem was. There were some episodes where he would be like, I did it! You know, he would save the person from the car crash and be like, all right, time to leap to the next body. It's not happening, you know, and then they would have to decide that's not it. That's not what you were supposed to do. And so that was really fun to play on those preconceptions of people watching television shows and being like, oh, that kid's being abused by his parents. You got to get that kid out of the house, then you win. And it's like, no, actually, there's more to it than that. And so it shows don't judge a book by its cover. Don't look at a situation and think, I got it. You know, like learn more about it. Learn more about those people, absorb the information, process it, then learn more. And I definitely thought that was a message that was prevalent in Quantum Leap. Bjorn or Haraldsvik, have you had time to watch the new Tomb Raider movie? Any thoughts about it? I have not. I'm not interested in it because it looks like the game, and I already played that. I already experienced that story, and I thought it was told very well. So I don't know if I necessarily need that story to be told. But if it drifts in front of my view on any of the services that I pay for, that every now and then provide movies for me to watch, I'll check it out. I hear it's pretty good. People have said it's better than most. Parasite Paladin, everybody has favorites: color, food, season, book, movie, etc. And various video game related things like game, controller, console, genre, series, etc. Which of the other 8 allies do you know the most favorites of? And of course, what are they? P.S. While that game trailer's book is far, far away, meaning if I wrote a book about game trailers, I just wanted to suggest that maybe you take some notes on the very early days just to be safe. Memory's a fleeting thing, you know. Yeah, that might be fun. To jot that down. Little self-serving, but sure. What ally do I know the most of? I mean, probably Huber, because he just doesn't shut up about it. But I mean, really, it comes down to, I mean, the person I know the least preferences of is probably Dawn, because I spend the least amount of time with him, and he's generally reserved. You know, Dawn likes to gamble, and as such, he plays his cards close to his chest. Whereas Huber is the exact opposite. Huber likes axes. Huber likes role-playing. Huber likes horror. Huber likes Resident Evil. Huber likes most of everything. The thing about Huber is you could rattle off a lot of stuff. Huber does not like when his sinuses cannot be controlled. Every now and then he gets very mucusy. He has said as much, so that's why I'm bringing that up. But yeah, I mean, everybody, right? Shotguns. Here we go. They're on the list. Meaningful kills, shotguns, Vikings, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Good. So yeah, a lot to know about the Hubie. But that's what makes him Hubie. And finally, before editorial today, the Chris Griffin. How about a quick cup of Trailer Jones? Because I'd love your thoughts on the new Avengers Infinity War trailer. I like it too. I don't think it's that spoilery. I think it's an okay trailer to watch. They're very smart about how they've done both of the Infinity War trailers, where it sets up, you see the prep, you see the awe, the dread slowly building, the characters looking up and seeing the threat approaching. You see little quick snippets of battles starting, and you see possibly moments of tension. Yeah. And so I think that they're done very well. The only thing that I didn't like about the last Infinity War trailer is there's not a lot of meat to it because I think they're being extremely reserved about showing off a lot of that film. I think that'll be one kind of like Last Jedi where once the TV spots start rolling in, I'm out. I'm good. I'm ready to see this movie. I don't need the specifics. I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen the trailer, actually. They didn't sign up for a trailer score here, so I'm not going to spoil it for them. But the ending, I think, is intentionally misleading. If you have seen the trailer, the very last shot in there, I don't think is indicative of what you think it is. A lot of people were like, oh no! I think it's a red herring. I think it's sleight of hand. I think maybe that other character might do the thing you're thinking the character they're suggesting is. All right, enough talking about that. Takeaways, music appreciation stream, change the way the data is displayed on Patreon title posts. Done, at least for Cup of Jones. We'll see if we can change it elsewhere. The VR 180 is apparently a cool camera that we should check out. And see if I can maybe put all the questions in a doc and post them maybe as a link in the description on Patreon. I think is the easiest way to do that. Save that in a Word or text document, post that on the link. The trick is I write the questions on there and I do the Patreon post on the other computer, so it might be a little tricky with how that is set up. But good suggestion. So, hi everybody. It is 11:37. We have a really busy day today. We're doing lots of shoots. We're actually doing some video capture. We're going to be playing some Kirby after this because we got to get some multiplayer footage of Kirby for the review. I got to get going. I got to eat something. I actually didn't have breakfast because I literally got up 30 minutes before the stream started and like ran in. But it's nice because I last night what I like to do the evening before I go to bed, I set up the mic, I set up the camera, I write the questions out. I don't print them because it's typically late at night and Amanda's in bed. I try to get everything ready to go so I can just come up in the morning, make the Patreon post, get chat up on that TV, get Exploit going on this TV, and print out the questions, and we're good to go. So yeah, I'm going to do an editorial now. Thanks, Jastrom. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to do an editorial now, again, Rick Hoag's out, about hypersexual video games and Nazis. So if you know my opinions on those and you're good, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to Cup of Jones, everybody. But if this is maybe something that you've been kind of frustrated with, maybe our verbiage on these two issues, I have no problem doubling down on my opinions. And this is kind of something that I've seen actually. Somebody messaged me, DM'd me on Twitch, and let me know about conversations that were happening on Reddit that expressed frustrations that people were having with Easy Allies. And so I was like, oh, I'd kind of like to talk about that, but it's not something I necessarily want to bring up. But then, boom, here we go. Diamond Crusader's like, I want to talk about it in a Cup of Jones. And I will reject questions on Cup of Jones for potentially many reasons. I mean, kudos to all of you patrons who submit questions for Cup of Jones that I haven't had to do that a lot. The only two times where I've had to do that, or the only two recurring instances where I've had to do that are, number one, I've already answered the question, or we collectively have answered it. It's something that's come up on the podcast or group streams and stuff like that, so we don't necessarily answer it. And two, which maybe it happened once in the history of Cup of Jones, which is a pretty good track record, where it's clear, you know, there are controversial questions, but it's clear you're asking that question as bait. Like, you're asking that question because you want a reaction out of me, or I don't think you were 100% serious when asking that question. You're maybe just dropping a joke here on Patreon and like, okay, chuckle. I'll do a like or maybe respond to that question, but I won't necessarily bring it up a Cup of Jones. But these were not presented in a way, Diamond Crusader's kind of frustrated about this stuff, but these were not presented in a way where it's like, gotcha, you know, and so I'm happy to answer it. The Cup of Jones has the luxury of being very comfortable a lot of the time, where we talk about theme park rides and Batman and candy and pasta, you know, and stuff, not necessarily pertinent to Patreon. And sometimes people can get frustrated with how we handle things. How's chat doing? How we doing? Strap up, buckle in, editorial time. It's not over. Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm not going to spend too much time getting into this, but I'm gonna read these really quickly. If you want, you can go to patreon.com/EasyAllies if you are a patron of Easy Allies. I hope you are if you're watching this, and you can read the deep cut. I clipped out 2 or 3 sentences for each question just to kind of contextualize specifically what they wanted to know. Number 1, people that seem to have absolutely no tolerance for other cultures or just hate talking about anything that could be seen as sexy. Say that games like Senran Kagura, Omega Labyrinth Z, which I'm not familiar with, and other Japanese games, aka hypersexual video games, quote unquote, create rapists and people, and the Japanese creators of those games don't respect women or rape little kids because the fictional characters they gawk at have a fictional age that's below 18. Facepalm. Number 2, while I'm already trigger ready, I might as well say that the Nazis you guys, and especially Huber, just love to kill in video games, or at least that is what you're actually doing, but the way Huber says it makes me really uncomfortable, because he says it in a way that makes me think he's going to come here and kill me because I'm German, or at least half German. So, the major points here are, do sexually, potentially deviant video games create sexual deviance? And is it okay to vilify a particular type of person that can potentially have a historical significance or a familial, lineage with a person? If a person has a relative that, was alive at that time or even was, fought for whatever side of a war, and then here we are glorifying, ending their life in a video game. The topic, he also talks about video game violence. I'm actually, it's in my head, so I'm gonna talk about number 2 first. Yeah, the topic has come up a lot just with video game violence because we have violence that has been pervasive in schools and public spaces lately, and people are looking to blame something, and the question of video game violence has come up, and it's tough because with art and with games, and this also applies to number 1, you really have to be specific when you're talking about the thing you're talking about. Like, is it okay to talk about murdering people and that's great? No. Can it be uncomfortable to talk about, I mean, I just said today where I was like, these thoughts come into my head. I thought about it today when I talked about the dragon weapons in Fortnite, where I was like, I like an automatic weapon. I like a good weapon where I can just hold the trigger and spit bullets out. And it's like, yeah, gross. Like there is a little bit of that uncomfortableness where it's like, in a video game, right? And so you have to have that context where obviously, yeah, when I'm talking about it, I'm going to be reviewing Far Cry. I'm going to talk about the weapons. I like bow and arrows. I like killing people with a bow and arrow in a video game. It's like that sounds horrible when you say it out loud, but so you have to, I think a lot of times, not necessarily have context or have like the Surgeon General's warning, labeled to every single time you mention something like that, but have it in your mind and understand that when you mention things, when you're like, woo, killing Nazis, it's like, we enjoy killing people that basically are writing off the value of other human beings. So it seems kind of like a give and take. It's like they decided that these group of human beings over here don't have any value, so thanks for taking the onus off of me to decide whether you have any value or not. I'm going to stop you from harming those people and harming other people, so I'm going to stop you, and because of how unflinchingly horrible you were to these specific groups of people, it makes that process much easier. It's kind of like, maybe, think of your Batman and you heard a murder and a bank robbery. It's like, you would probably go try to stop that murder. It's just a question of like, what is the, not necessarily the greater good, but what is the easier enemy? And Nazis are just an easy enemy. And it's easy for me as an American, as, the woohoo, we won, but at the same time, it can be insensitive when you talk about that. It was fascinating for my honeymoon to go to Germany and go to various towns that, were bombed and rebuilt, or, in a lot of ways very much resemble, what they were like during World War II, and getting that context about this country that had to overcome this this kind of blotch on their timeline, this thing that obviously, they hold lots of regret for. It's very fascinating to see Germany's actions in light of the events following World War II and kind of what how far that country's come and how they view their history and how they approach that. Case in point, if I was to speak to a Native American that was playing a Native American game in the Wild West, and that Native American was saying, boy, it's fun to kill, white people on horseback, I'd be like, I hear you, like, I don't, I certainly don't want you holding up a poster board that says, it's fun to kill white people, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I could see how, like tapping into that frustration, as an American, as somebody who lives in this country, I hold a very heavy amount of shame for the fact that we just kind of strolled in and we're like, mine, and we just booted everybody. I recommend going and watching Ken Burns' The West, because it is very eye-opening. You just kind of think of, when you think of the for a long time, at least I thought of this, when you think of Native Americans being just kind of brushed off of this continent that I live on, you think of it as just kind of this big push. You know, we came in and, oh, excuse me. Oh, we're in California. Okay, get in the ocean. You know, it's like, it wasn't that easy. It didn't happen in a couple of months. It was a very long, bloody, frustrating process that we made a lot of bad mistakes. We made promises. The American government flat out said, we're not going to do this. And then we did it. And then we're like, oh, sorry. Well, we're not going to do this. And then we did that. And so it's tough. You never want to condone or make light of the loss of human life. You never want to label somebody as a automatic target that everybody should throw stones at. But at the same time, it's easy to do that, and in video game form, Nazis just make. I mean, I grew up an Indiana Jones fan, and so it was like, I hear you, Indy. You know, I hate Nazis too, and so yeah, they can be a very easy target. But if you live in Germany, that can be. It's tough for me to truly understand how that feels. I can't. I didn't grow up in Germany. I can't go back in time and give it a shot, and so I have to sympathize to your emotions in that regard, as far as how that makes you feel. But I am also in charge of my own guilt when it comes from holding 2 shotguns and running down a hallway, blasting people in scary uniforms, wearing scary masks, shouting horrible things in German, and wanting to go eradicate an entire race. I enjoy that, and I'm okay. I don't feel too guilty about that. Number 1, possibly the more touchy issue. Who knows? These are both touchy. Does games that feature, I don't know if sexual perversion is too strong of a word, because I don't have a lot of context on these games. I don't play these games. I don't enjoy that kind of entertainment. I'm getting to the point now where I'm going back and watching movies in the 90s where I'm like, that's not funny anymore. You know, you go like I go back and watch Swingers, and it's like you're a bear man with claws. She's just a bunny. It's like when he like sees, you know, her at the other side of the bar, and she like turns into a bunny, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna kill her with my bear claws. And you're like, it just doesn't, like when I was in high school, I was like, that's hilarious. And like now I'm like, it's just not. Again, I'm not like, shame on you, Doug Liman. Who wrote that? I can't remember who specifically wrote the script. Shame on you, Jon Favreau. And you know, it's not that extreme, but it's just not as funny. You know, it's a different. We live in a different culture now, at least in the United States, and so it's the kind of thing where I will say, I want to correct something, and it's tough to do on Cup of Jones because this is Patreon exclusive. So I think a lot of people that are making these comments are making the comment because they have left Easy Allies. And what's frustrating is I see these people making comments on Reset Era, on NeoGAF, on Reddit, that are like, Easy Allies isn't listening to me, and yet you $1 and above, patreon.com, submit a question, Cup of Jones, we'll get into it every time. You know, like unless it's clearly bait, unless you're trying to provoke a reaction out of me, unless you're being deliberately insulting, or I can tell it. You know, there's a joke in there. I can see what kind of post you're making. I want to talk about this stuff. It's the point of Cup of Jones. I'm saving it for the editorial in case people don't want to get into this, but in case this is outside of the information that they would like to get from Cup of Jones. But there's a sentiment from a lot of people that I was discouraging people from playing Peach Beach Splash and condemning people for playing Peach Beach Splash. That I had the attitude that if you have played Peach Beach Splash and you enjoyed it, you're a bad person. You are a sexual deviant. You clearly like to abuse people in that way. I don't know. I haven't done the research on the psychology of that. I don't think that's true as much as if I went to Germany, give me shotguns so I can go around killing Germans. Like I don't think us making decisions personally on what we choose to cover and what we choose to focus on is in turn saying, if you do that, you know, I didn't review Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. I would wanted to, but it doesn't mean I'm saying people who didn't are bad. You know, we didn't necessarily cover Moss, which frustrated me, which just came out on PSVR and is a delightful game. Doesn't mean we don't like it, you know? And if we hit a snag immediately when we started the group stream selection committee, because more than anything, completely detached from the game that was Peach Beach Splash that we did not play. I was insensitive to the people that were just excited for us to play a game, period. And I very briefly, before we started that stream, mentioned like, yeah, we're not going to stream it, blah, 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 moving on. And that was very insensitive to the people that wanted to see that. That was insensitive to the group streams selection committee, period. Not that our Tuesday night group streams are just this whole reverent thing, but they gave us money, period. They gave us money to get to do something, and we told them they couldn't do it, and gave very, very poor reasons why. And so that wasn't cool. But if you liked and played, if you platinumed Peach Beach Splash, cool. I would love to hear your perspective on it. If you really don't like Peach Beach Splash and it's frustrating for me to hear me talk about it that way, I apologize. Maybe I need to spend more time with it I've watched trailers and seen gameplay, but I have yet to play it. But I just, if we decide collectively not to experience something, it's because we have to make that decision as a group. And, we didn't, I've said it before, I'll say it again, we didn't stream Peach Beach Splash because it would have made a weird stream. I've gotten used to what it feels like, to the feeling of this room. And there are some times where we intentionally pour a little salt into the mix. We intentionally heat up the floor in here a little bit when we do Hall of Greats, when we do the Trial of Kyle Bossman, when we do things that we know it's gonna get a little heated, when we live stream our GOTY deliberations. But it's a heat we can handle. It's a heat that I'm prepared to comment on. And when I'm going into a game that can potentially do that I haven't played, that I don't know, it's kind of like walking through a minefield. Like, I don't know if something's going to come up here. We even had some issues with That's You, the selfie game. Had a lot of bizarre negativity to it that they actually warned us ahead of time before we played it, but we didn't really know what we were getting ourselves into. That, had I known, had I had that experience, we probably wouldn't have streamed that game, or we would have turned that setting off, because it didn't make for a good stream. It didn't. Watching the 9 of us do that thing was not fun, and a lot of times, because we don't have the budget to make this huge production every single Tuesday night, it's really just a camera pointing at us playing a game, sitting on a couch with some lights on us. Like, that's what you're watching. And so we don't have super fancy graphics. We don't have a set that we can cut to with other things happening. Somebody mentioned in a post or somewhere that they want a podium for Hall of Greats. I would love to get a podium in here, but there's just not a lot of space. There's not a lot of space to cut to someplace else. And so, so much of the value of a group stream when we do that Tuesday night is just the raw, natural reactions that we have to the game that we're playing than we have to each other. And the raw, natural reactions we had from that game, I thought, predictably would not have made an entertaining group stream. So that's why we didn't do that. But that's not necessarily the point that Diamond Crusader's trying to get to. It's, does playing games like this make you a bad person? Does playing a game where you're potentially treating women not the way that you would treat them in real life, going and causing you to do those actions automatically? No. Does playing violent video games make you violent? No. Does playing an enemy, does picking Sith in the Old Republic or picking the Horde in World of Warcraft mean you are the villain in real life? No. Like, we're all role-playing, we're all trying these things. I have a friend of mine that I do the tabletop group with that always plays the bad guy. That always, when we just did our D&D Strahd campaign, he was horrifyingly evil, but we would laugh through it, and we would explore these things together and explore the mindset behind somebody going into this. And it's I really try to keep an open mind when it comes to exploring these things. But a lot of times in social media, a lot of times when you're dealing with entertainment, you don't have the time to explore that. You don't have the control over the conversation. It can kind of get away from you. And so it's frustrating to see these conversations happening on Reddit, other places where I don't spend a lot of time, and seeing them kind of get away from themselves and seeing people be like, well, Easy Allies made that decision clearly because they don't like me. And it's like, that's not true, and I wish I could have a cup of coffee with you and explain why not. And Cup of Jones is my main avenue to do that. And so hopefully, again, a lot of this content with Cup of Jones we try to keep behind this paywall, because you give us $1, you get your cup. And I don't want you going out there and fighting, my battles for me. But I do not have these preconceived opinions about people. I do not think inherently that makes you a bad person. But as much as I try to keep an open mind about violence in games, I do play lots of games that are very violent. Even Fortnite, which is very cartoony. I'm running around with a gun all the time and just, sending bullets this way and that. I try to keep an open mind about how that can be perceived by people, how I talk about it, how I reference things. We make the joke about meaningful kills because that kind of, found a nasty place in my stomach when I first read that, when Huber read that in a script. He's got meaningful kills. And I was like, ew. You know, like I think it was in the booth by the time I read that, so I'm like, all right, I guess I'll let that pass now. But like, it's out of context. Meaningful kills is not great. It's not a statement you want on a T-shirt or, you know, embroidered on a pillow. But so if you are a fan of these games, if you did play Beach Beach Splash and platinum it, I don't want to wag my finger at you. I don't want to say like, how dare you? But I invite you to have an open mind about how people who are not familiar with the game, who have not played it, who feel a deep-seated emotional reaction, just like you do when we mention killing Nazis. You're like, hey, context, please. What do you mean when you say that? When someone's like, I love Peach Beach, slapping women. People are like, hey, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say that? And so if you can just have a love and respect for those people, a sympathy and understanding and empathy for the gut reaction that they have with those things. If you consider the journey of the genre of this game, of playing these games, of understanding the difference, how sexuality is perceived in America versus Japan. In a lot of ways, America is very behind Europe when it comes to sexuality. They're very forward thinking in a lot of the ways that they print and have sex and film and television. As long as you keep an open mind and understand that the sky's the limit when it comes to offending people. You never know. And so that doesn't mean that you yourself have to be offended as well. That doesn't mean you yourself have to change what you're doing or how you're doing it. But just understanding it and taking a couple minutes to really put yourself in that person's position and think about where they're coming from is the first step into actually trying to make this world a better place and actually trying to communicate with each other and trying to fix this crazy firestorm that is social media that has in a lot of ways gotten out of control, but in a lot of ways is bringing us together in strangely, in a very strange format. But it is what it is. We are here on the internet. We are all here living on planet Earth. We got to get along. And so I will try to empathize with your frustrations, hearing people gleefully talk about killing Germans. If you will possibly get out there and step outside your comfort zone and hear people that are frustrated with the way women are treated, not only in Peach Beach Splash, not only in Omega Labyrinth Z, which now I'm incredibly curious about, but other games that might present a mistreatment of women, and not in a way that's like, you know, we're kidding. You know, it's like, I don't get that vibe there. I don't know if you're kidding. You know, it might seem obvious to you. It's not obvious to other people. So interesting that you brought up both of those things, because I think they are kind of circular in nature when it comes to your opinions about them. So hopefully that wasn't too much. Hopefully that wasn't one where it was like, ooh, Jones, you should have missed it. Yeah, I would have dodged that question. I like this. I think this makes me a better, I think Cuppa Jones makes me a better person. I think Cuppa Jones makes me a better public speaker. I think Cuppa Jones makes me a better manager of Easy Allies. I think Cuppa Jones helps me in so many ways, help me understand our audience, understand the opinions of people, understand the impact that we are having as Easy Allies. So I do not want to shy away from comments like this. But if things do get a little touchy, I will most likely save it for the editorial at the end. And that's the end. That's the end of the show. That's the end of the editorial. That's the end of Cup of Jones. It's a long episode. Let's go all the way to noon. The clock says 11:59 right now. Let's just keep pushing it. Let's see if we can get to that noon. See if we can do a full 2-hour episode. I started 6 minutes late, so technically it's not 2 hours, so I don't know why I'm making such a big deal about it being noon. Hi, everybody. Cheers to you. Thank you for watching Cuppa Jones. Thank you to everybody who came out for our anniversary. Thank you to everybody that came to our meetup yesterday. Thank you to everybody that will be viewing our special anniversary stream tonight. And thank you to everybody that will be celebrating tomorrow, because tomorrow is the actual anniversary, 2 years of the inception of Easy Allies. I know at midnight tonight I will be pouring one out for my homies. I don't know. I will be lighting a candle. I will be celebrating the incredible nature. Somebody said, you know, I think it was Alexander Zirinov said, like, hey, you're at 41K now, how's morale? We're 2 years old, we made it. We made it 2 years into this endeavor. We are not as old as Game Trailers, but we are older than Defy. We are older than that era, than when we came over to Defy. I mean, it's been a while now, but it's one of those things that I think about being 2 years old, I've gotten some messages from people who are like, you know, congratulations on that. That's quite an achievement. And in a lot of ways, Easy Allies just keeps going day by day, and so it's important to stop and realize, oh wait, today's significant. This is really cool, and so it's nice it's nice to be around for 2 years. And you know why we're around for 2 years? You, yeah, you. You're like, yeah, I know, all of us picked. No, you did it. whether you just jumped in right now, whether you became a patron today, whether you have been a patron this whole time, from the Mangos of the world all the way down to people who I have never read their names of in a podcast producer capacity or here on Cup of Jones, you've made an incredible thing happen. You've given us all jobs. You've given us a livelihood for 2 years. This is how we live. This is how we exist, and we can do it because of you. And so, I promised myself I wouldn't cry. I'm part of the reason why I'm so tired right now is because I was so electric Sunday night. Like, we got out of that event Sunday night. I forgot like 5 items at the venue, and I was just, I just felt the support from our community, the support from chat, the support from social media, the support from people who actually came to the event. And I couldn't go to bed. I didn't go to sleep, I think, until 3 o'clock that night because I watched it again. I read comments. I went on social media. It was just too much. And so it's fun. But we are starting year 3, so it's time to move on. It's time to move on to some fun events that we would like to do in April and May. June is E3. Easy Living's coming up at the end of the summer. We have more fun events to look forward to, and we can do them because of our lovely support here on patreon.com/EasyAllies. Thanks for supporting us. Thanks for listening or watching to Cup of Jones. See you tonight and next week. Cheers.